You are listening to Talking Star Wars.
Hello, Star Wars fans. I'm Alex,
And I'm Connor,
and today we're going to talk about Star Wars.
like we do from time to time.
This is episode 81 of Talking Star Wars, our character spotlight on Leia Organa, General, Princess, Mother, Hero.
And yeah, I think that Princess Leia is an incredibly valuable character when it comes to that of fiction in general. I was trying to think of sort of your archaic warrior women, um, and you have characters in mythology, your Greek mythology and historical uh, fiction, things like that. But in terms of modern day fiction, I can't really think of any cinematic character that stands out like Leia as far as being a prominent female, um, not just leader in terms of a leader of people, but also a fighter in a sense.
And she's also a character who is one of the more egalitarian depictions of a character in that, while she is a princess and feminine and a woman, that is not really, she doesn't need to like overcome sexism except perhaps by Jabba the Hutt. Uh, but so, well, we have to acknowledge she is the only woman with a speaking role in the first two Star Wars movies ever released, and then there are two women with speaking roles in Return of the Jedi because Mon Mothma has one scene.
Hmm.
So first we have to acknowledge that yes, Leia might be a progressive character, but she's also the only woman, so she's doing a lot of work.
Hmm.
And Carrie Fisher's depiction of the character um, in being a prominent female character in Star Wars. That said, the fact that she is still a great character needs to be lauded and analyzed about why she still works so well as a character in both the original trilogy and the sequel trilogy.
I think there's so much in terms of her presence in A New Hope, uh, where when we see her for the first time with R2D2, uh, it's just this demure visual of your princess in white, your damsel in distress. Um, but as soon as she has dialogue, she is just tossing it back at Vader, at Tarkin,
Well,
insulting him, calling him smelly. Uh,
Well, yeah, she's this white-clad ingenue who gives a secret plan to the droid, soft-spoken, flees down a corridor. The stormtroopers come, and she yanks out a blaster and shoots one before they stun her. Was totally ready to murder that whole contingent if she had to get away because, she is insurgent cell leader first and princess second.
yeah, she can take care of herself, and she's not going to be intimidated by the likes of Vader. You can look at our previous character spotlight on Vader himself and just how visually, sonically he's built to be this source of intimidation. And when you have someone stand up to him, it shows how much stronger, how prominent her presence is in the face of something like that, in the face of something as terrifying as the stormtroopers.
Yeah, she is probably the character who was most committed to the rebellion of our main three cast. Uh, Han by the movie the sixth or by episode six is pretty well locked and loaded. He has the rank of general. Luke has always been committed to bringing down the Empire, but he's more focused on Vader and the Emperor and his father. Whereas Leia is I have with Bail Organa, she has built this rebellion from the ground up, and she is Princess Leia, but also General Organa, which is a title
Mhm.
that she retains all the way through to the area of the Resistance. And that becomes her preferred title as a military leader rather than as a royalty of a dead planet.
Mhm. So seeing her as this active force, seeing her as this um, sort of personification of the rebellion makes her stand out. And again, we have a laundry list of female protagonists today who are standout, who are great representations of their specific genres. But um, I look at Leia and I see someone who is never cast in the light of, oh, they need to be rescued. Even in the film where they need to rescue her, she's the one who and then rescues her
Yeah.
saviors.
Well, multiple times. So she needs
Yeah.
to be rescued from being executed by the Empire after succeeding in transmitting the plans away. And then when they don't have a plan to get away, she improvises one, and she's the reason they successfully escaped the Death Star. Though let's admit, it was a group effort. You need the unique combination of insanity that is Luke Skywalker, Han Solo, and Leia Organa to successfully escape the Death Star, even when you're being allowed to escape.
Mhm.
And then when she is captured by Jabba the Hutt, it is because she was almost successfully rescuing Han Solo, who was the damsel in that movie.
Right.
And then the first chance she gets, she's like, "Get me out of this bikini. I'm going to choke Jabba the Hutt to death with this chain. Help Luke blow up this sail barge, and then let's get back into some combat fatigues, please."
Yeah, I mean, she's rallying right against the Weinstein-like character of Jabba the Hutt who put her in the bikini in the first place. So she's taking that which sexually exploited her and punishing it immediately.
Yeah, and we can talk about how that's still problematic and that it still invites the female gaze onto Leia alongside Jabba. It's a little bit iffy. You cannot blame Leia the character, however, for that. She behaves exactly as you would expect
Mhm.
a captured insurgent leader to, or resistance leader to, when she's captured and made a sex object, in that she rejects that and murders the person, or assassinates the person who is objectifying her and had captured her, and is trying to kill her future husband and her brother.
And one other note to help summarize her character: she's the only one who goes to Cloud City knowing that, suspecting that something is afoot. Luke walks blindly into the trap, not even caring that it's a trap, and Han never sees it. She's probably the most intelligent out of our trio.
Yeah, yeah. There's actually it's interesting character dynamic. And Star Wars, I think the closest we get to a femme fatale in the original trilogy is Lando Calrissian, is in the character of the femme fatale, and he does not. He tries to seduce Leia. When that doesn't work, he charms his best friend, eventual best friend Han Solo.
Mhm.
So um, there could have been like this gender reversal. Oh, Lando, the male fatale, getting with Leia, and he tries, but she is not receptive to his advances,
Mhm.
and so he has to work his magic on Han instead by using his charm.
Yeah, she's
Yeah.
too clever for that.
But at the same time, I think we need to also analyze Leia's character in that she is not a like neuter character, in that you have some of this like old school heroic fantasy where the only difference between a male character and a female character is their name and the pronouns that they use. There is no like difference in them at all. You see this a little bit in Narnia, for example, where the characters do not express desires, and eventually they might have like children or show interest, but that's far in the future, and we're not going to talk about that in our heroic fantasy. Leia is still a woman and still has a strong female identity that does not undermine any parts of her character. She is also not perfect. She is flawed. She has a temper. She does not always make the best decisions. Can be ruled by her emotions in the same way that any other person can be, but she does her best with what she has. And she eventually, it's very important to her to be Luke's sister, and she cares for him deeply. She falls in love with Han Solo and convinces him to marry her. Um, and then is still the one who has to pull a lot of the stability weight in their relationship, but they have a partnership that they make work for a long time. And then eventually she is both a general and mother to Ben Solo, who becomes Kylo Ren, and wants to save him, but even admits that it might not be possible, and does not stop her forces from attacking the First Order, knowing that that might kill her own son. So she might tell Han Solo, "I still believe our son can be saved," but at the same time, she does what she has to as a general.
And you bring up her maternal instincts, and I think that's, even present in Return of the Jedi, where we see uh, the Ewoks, and when Han and Luke are presented with the challenge that is the Ewoks, Han's reacting to them like a group of savage animals, and Luke is trying to come up with ways to take advantage of them. We see that Leia is just assimilated into the culture, and like a maternal figure, uh, is in sort of a motherly role, and is accepted. So, we have these maternal mighty heroes who can't quite think their way out of this situation or feel their way out of this situation, and yet we have Leia who's accomplished that. So I don't know. We kind of get a way of you know, in an ideal situation, uh, Leia being protagonist might be effective. I mean, uh, when when Lucas was originally coming up with the draft of Star Wars, Luke Skywalker was a female character. Um, it's almost as if uh, having a character who is almost flawless and effective in their activities is challenging to have as a main protagonist.
Yeah, so you have to make Leia have a temper and be superior and arrogant, even if she's usually right. You have to have Luke be kind of whiny and gormless at the start before growing into his powers. You need and responsibility, and you have Han Solo be kind of struggle with morality and be self interested and um, self centered even before he can grow into caring about other people and being Captain Solo, hero of the rebellion.
And let's see where all that takes them by the time we get to the sequel trilogy. So we have Luke as this fabled hero, and he has since walked away from his journey. We have Han Solo, who redeemed himself, became hero of the rebellion, figure of the Republic. Now he's back to being a smuggler. Uh, Leia is continuing to fight the fight. She is continuing to not just serve the Republic, but serve the resistance to the Republic, which in we've talked the politics of Star Wars and how by the sequel trilogy it's a bit murky, but she's still fighting for freedom.
Yeah, a lot of the transition of Leia from the victorious rebel leader that we see at the end of Return of the Jedi, and how does she become the older, somewhat grizzled, and entire undisputed leader of the Resistance by the time of The Force Awakens. It's told in the novel by Claudia Gray, Bloodline, where this is set 5 years before the events of The Force Awakens, so it's Leia in her late 50s. Han Solo, her husband, is off and away. He's currently running a racing company because she knows that he can't really stay in one place too long. He gets unhappy. So much like a mariner of old, she holds down the home front while being a key member of the Galactics, of the New Republic Senate. While he's off, managing his own affairs, and they both care for their son. But at that point, Kylo, or Ben Solo at the time, is studying at Luke's Jedi Academy. But then we get her. She's a mentor to other younger aides. She has a keen political insight. She is the leader of her party, which is more of a sort of a federalist approach that wants to keep a small military, doesn't believe in a lot of centralized power because they saw what happened with Palpatine when he subverted that system. And it turns out that yes, the militant faction is indeed being bankrolled by the secret First Order that Palpatine set up during um, the later stages of his rule and sent into wild space. And his plans come to fruition when eventually the First Order secedes from the Republic. And no, they're of course not any way related to like the Confederacy. There's, a bunch of human supremacists seceding from a slightly dysfunctional but superior republic. I don't see any. I don't see any illusion there, Connor.
None whatsoever. None whatsoever. Definitely don't listen to our take on Star Wars and its reflection on culture. Um,
Yeah, but so we see, and I think one part then. So we've seen Leia as a mother, Leia as a sister, and that she cares deeply for Luke. Leia as a wife um, is like, let's be honest. If we were a modern couple, Leia would be the breadwinner, and
mhm.
Han would be like the guy who likes his nice car. His friend Chewie comes over. They do some gig work. He runs his own like racing circuit, but she's the state senator bringing home the salary and deeply in love with him while he, and they make it work. So that would be their modern dynamic. It's a
Mhm.
version of it. Not to discount Han Solo, but uh, Han is not a high-powered CEO of a character. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah, and when it comes to the idea of flaws, it's taking a look at her relationship with her son. And even though these uh, developments, in my opinion, weren't best delivered in The Rise of Skywalker, we do have this notion that Leia made a sacrifice to stop her training in order to prevent Ben from meeting his certain demise. It's a vision that she had. Um, to me, this kind of like echoes her trying not to reveal to Ben what his lineage is and that he, comes from Vader. Um, which is, I would say, moving forward with any kind of dishonesty is not going to lead to the best outcome. So I can see that as being a mistake in her character. But it still, like, ultimately leads to her sacrificing these abilities, these powers, these things that could make her life much easier. Um, Certainly, her role in leading the galaxy easier if she simply leaned into them.
Yeah, she definitely takes on a maternal role for Rey instead, and I think that's part of her recognition for herself that her attachment to people is too strong for her to make a good Jedi. I mean, Luke, right or wrong, decides to detach himself from the galaxy rather than potentially fall to the dark side.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think Leia has that in her. She's not able to detach herself ever. So I think maybe that's a deliberate choice she makes. She's too attached to her son, her husband. Could she make a good Jedi? Yes, but I don't think. I think she decided she didn't have the temperament for it,
Mm-hmm.
and because she also takes on sort of a maternal role for Rey, who never had a maternal figure in her life. I mean, she's basically the adopted granddaughter of Han Solo and Leia. And then, of course, Han dies, and it's very tragic. Oh, sorry. If you're listening to this and have not seen Episode 7, what are you doing? I
Mm-hmm.
just spoiled the end for it. Go watch that movie.
And we have spoiler warnings on all of our episodes, so you should have known that by now.
Yeah. But I think we need to also acknowledge that Leia, along with Luke, is one of the characters that we do see the entire cycle of her life from a young child
Mm-hmm.
to the moment of her death as a elder veteran. So, like, we look at like the chronology of media that has depicted her, and just sort of sketch that out, and what do we think of each piece of it as it fills it in.
Mm-hmm.
So, I think the earliest depiction, the youngest that we see her as like a character with agency, would be in Kenobi.
Yeah, we get a great sense of her demeanor. I think one of the strengths of that series is the actress's performance in behaving very much like a young Leia, like a young Carrie Fisher, of having uh, a sort of headstrong attitude and letting that enforce her decision making.
Yep. So yeah, we get Leia is like a what 8-year old, 10-year old,
Yeah, I think,
10-year old,
yeah, that sounds about right.
precocious youth. I didn't mind her depiction in Kenobi at all. I liked the dynamic she had with old Ben and her little droid. It showed she had a strong sense of personal justice from a young age. It established her mixed feelings about her royal heritage, her egalitarian worldview versus being literal adopted royalty. And I liked that, where she also had a close relationship with her parents. We don't even call them her adopted parents because let's admit Anakin Skywalker was never a father to her,
Mm-hmm.
and Padme died when she was born. So then I think the next work we see from Leia's perspective is there's a novel, Leia, the Princess of Alderaan, set when Leia is 16 and first doing a junior galactic senate sort of political program. And she's suspected for a while that her parents are up to something. She thinks they might be just like skirting bureau regulations to funnel more aid to planets that are under interdiction, but she suspects, and eventually in the novel we learn that yes, Bail Organa, Mon Mothma, and others are setting up a rebellion. So I think this would be probably set at about the time of Andor. So we kind of see what's Bail Organa up to while Mon Mothma is doing her thing, and he's trying to keep his daughter out of the rebellion until his daughter figures out the rebellion is happening and insists she wants to be part of it. And so then Bail Organa's like, okay, if you're in, you're in. Here's this job on Lethal, which then kind of immediately leads into her next thing we see when she's still a teenager, a little bit older, and is in the Rebels TV show. Um, Undercover is still a representative of the Junior Imperial Senate as her father's heir, passing transports through a scheme off to the rebellion.
So yeah, it gives a little bit more trajectory as to uh, how Leia got set up into this freedom fighting gig. It's not just something that she inherently gained through hereditary from Padme, but it's something that has been sort of bestowed upon her by her adopted parents.
And she's insisted. She had a personal sense of justice that was strong enough that she decided she wanted to join the rebellion. And there's other plot points in some of these novels that go deeper into her character, but basically show that as soon as she just realized that how amoral the Empire was, she had no personal choice, she felt, other than to oppose it with everything that she could. And her mother was more reticent, but her father at least was like, okay, yeah, I've realized, I see this in my daughter, and we could use the help. And if I just let you go off on your own, you're going to get yourself killed. So welcome to the nascent rebellion. We're not the Rebel Alliance yet, but we soon will be. So I think the next depiction of her is probably like Rogue One into A New Hope.
Yeah.
There's might be some minor flashbacks kind of set in that period, but otherwise it's just the implication that she's been doing the same type of stuff she was doing in Rebels, running aid missions, attempting to secretly pass information to the rebellion, being one of the public faces that was allowed to funnel supplies in until the Imperial Senate is dissolved, and she is part of the key linchpin in the plan to get the stolen Death Star plans to the rebellion. Because with the Death Star, all bets are off. If Alderaan can be destroyed and other planets can be destroyed, how do you oppose someone like that? It would have been a dark reign indeed of the Empire.
I'm sure woven in between each installment of the trilogy, we have different comic books, different book installments that show stray adventures that aren't tied inherently to the Skywalker saga.
Yes, there's comic series that link both episode 4 and 5 and 6. 4 and 5 takes it so when Princess Leia, she was a princess still and had been a princess. She is an ally of the rebellion but had no formal military rank. But then when she shows up in um, The Empire Strikes Back, she's commanding soldiers. She's one of the ranking rebel leaders at Echo Base, and so it shows the evolution of that process where uh, in an emergency situation after much of the rebellion fleeing Yavin has been attacked and scattered, the uh, Rebel Alliance formally, they make Leia a general, Luke a commander, and Han Solo a captain. Not just honorary, but like real military ranks. Provisionally go fight the Empire, and then Leia retains that rank throughout the rest of it, as does Luke, and then eventually Captain Solo is promoted to Commander Solo, and then General Solo by the time of it. I mean, if when you're in a revolutionary army, I think you eventually just you're general. You got a lot of generals hanging around.
Yeah.
Yeah. So General Skywalker, General Solo, General Syndulla, General Organa.
It's like producers on a film set. How many executive producers do we have?
Yeah, how many generals do we have in this rebellion?
Mm-hmm.
So,
How about post Return of the Jedi? Is there much stitching that time between then and Force Awakens besides Bloodlines?
like we said in our novel review episode a while back, Bloodline is really it. We have a little bit of maybe some other minor things, but there's and I guess in the immediate aftermath of Return of the Jedi, we do have quite a bit. We have the Aftermath Trilogy, and we have a little bit in the Alphabet Squadron Trilogy. Leia is a viewpoint character for several chapters in the Aftermath Trilogy, seeing how, they're trying to form the New Republic. She is pregnant with Ben Solo. She's married Han Solo. We do get some good stuff from her point of view in some other novels and short stories where there's a novel, The Princess and the Scoundrel, which is about Han Solo and Leia's wedding and honeymoon, which they convinced Leia to go on by making it a diplomatic voyage across the recently toppled empire to show that the rebellion is victorious and now we can afford to have peace. Sort of as the Imperial remnant in disarray, and really they just don't want Leia to kill herself with overwork because they need her to then help kill the rest of the Imperial remnant. So they send her off on her honeymoon with Han Solo, and of course they stumble upon an Imperial conspiracy.
As one does.
Yep. So we get some stuff in the immediate, like the couple of years after Return of the Jedi. We see her honeymoon, which turns into a rebellion mission. We see her pregnancy and having her son, We see her growing relationship with Han Solo, with her husband, and we see her sort of slot herself in as a senator in the New Republic. But then there's a big long period between Leia at 32 and Leia at 55, where it's just kind of the New Republic chugging along,
Mhm.
not a lot happening. Presumably a lot happening, but not a lot that we know about. And the only other thing that's now said in that period is now she's mentioned in this show Ahsoka, because C-3PO shows up at a hearing, so she's supportive still of uh, efforts to stop the Empire from reemerging, but she's only mentioned.
Mhm. So I like kind of reflecting on the arc that her character takes from the beginning of her chronology onwards. I look at her, Han, and Luke. And Luke has an arc. He has, you know, uh, an arc that trends upwards to the rank of Jedi Master and then back down as sort of this disgraced fallen master who, uh, by the end, redeems himself.
Yeah, Luke is the classic hero's
Mhm.
journey in the first three movies, and then the failed mentor in the second.
Yeah. We have next to him, we have Han and Leia who are more static. Where Han Solo, even though he, grows into a captain and a general of the rebellion, still ends up a scoundrel, a smuggler. Uh, he eased into that role, and
I would have to disagree with your categorization of Leia and Han as static. I think they don't follow the same arc that Luke does, but if I
mhm,
was looking at a static character,
mhm.
that would be R2D2.
Oh
In
sure,
that he is there, he has a character, but it does
mhm,
not change. And same with Chewbacca. Chewbacca, great character, you know, does a lot interesting to have in the movies. Han's best friend, but does not change at all or make choices.
mhm,
Whereas Han and Leia each do make changes. Even if Han ends up falling back into bad habits,
mhm,
he's not the same person he was, and he's doing it for terrible, toxic, bad reasons. But there's still reasons and choices that he has made, so that means it's a change.
mhm.
So I'm just gonna say I think Leia is a very dynamic character. A true static character would be R2D2, um, the Emperor maybe.
Yeah, he makes very few uh, changes in direction on his path. Uh, yeah, but I view. I guess I'm taking it from the standpoint of we have Han in comparison to Luke, and we have Leia in comparison to Luke. Leia had all of the same opportunities to uh, choose the same path that Luke did, and yet she didn't. She chose, the path that she was set up on, whether that be the one that she chose growing up, or it be the one that Obi-Wan Kenobi and Bail Organa set her on by, adopting her in the first place. Um, it's interesting that by the time we get to Force Awakens and The Last Jedi, we have this hint of Leia being Force sensitive. We have this idea of her having the same ability, but she didn't go in that same direction. She chose to maintain her role as general.
I think that is also another interesting part of Leia's character in that she is
Mhm,
a Skywalker. She is Force sensitive. She could have become a Jedi, and she did not. She chose not to.
mhm.
We don't have a lot of characters who are Force sensitive yet reject training and identifying with that power.
Mhm.
I'm trying to think of another example, actually.
Yeah, there's you either
Yeah, I mean,
choose the dark side or you choose to go into exile, but you still end up teaching a Padawan at some point in
yeah,
your little green life.
Even Asajj Ventress, who rejects a lot of labels and organizations, still actively uses the Force
Hmm.
in her career as a bounty hunter. Um, Both when she attempts to kill Dooku and then becomes a bounty hunter after being resurrected on
Hmm.
Dathomir. Um,
Actively uses a lightsaber.
yeah, so she's not a good example. Who else?
Hmm.
Like, and Obi-Wan doesn't count because he deliberately went into exile to protect Luke.
Hmm.
So, I mean, maybe someone who's taken the brash vow. Um, Not no characters in the Acolyte that I can think of have rejected the Force in that way. So yeah, I think she is fairly, if not unique, at least rare in that she
Hmm.
is a powerful Force sensitive who, while she studied the Force, just decided it was a power she could occasionally call upon, but did not really seek to hone it
Hmm.
or use it, and instead focused on the other aspects of her life as a general, mother, wife, a politician, and hero.
Hmm. And I think we have to touch on the unfortunate fact that um, Carrie Fisher wasn't able to complete her portrayal as Leia, and you know, acting is an art form. Um, but certainly Leia was Carrie Fisher's most prominent role, is what she was most known for. And I guess she was also a very talented script doctor and would fix a lot of screenplays before things went to production. Um, but I wonder, you know, would her would her role have been any different in Rise of Skywalker had Carrie Fisher been alive?
I think that's without question, but I don't
Yeah.
think we could really ever know how it would have turned out
Hmm.
had Carrie Fisher not passed away.
Yeah.
But so I think it was also a fitting end for the character. Like other media might be released referencing Leia as a character in the interim periods, but along with Carrie Fisher, um, Leia Organa officially died during Rise of Skywalker.
Hmm.
Right. So, what are our final thoughts about Leia as a character? I like that she is a. Let's just. I guess we can just list things that we like about her as a character. I like that she's a realistically powerful woman
Hmm.
in that it's not like, oh, she needs to be one of the boys and be the best at like fighting with swords or a lightsaber. We have other characters that are really good at that and also don't make a point of their agenda, such as Ahsoka. But she's able to use a blaster, and she's never like bragging about it or shown to be the best. We don't have a lot of people, having braggadocio like that anyway. But
Hmm.
there's the scene where she's shot and she hides her blaster in her unwounded arm, while Han Solo tells her, that he loves her for her gumption, while she shoots both stormtroopers that are threatening them. So she is competent and driven without being like perfect or always making the right decision.
Yeah, I appreciate how much like you said, she's not just she's just like a guy and she can do all the things that a guy can, but oh, she's a lady? Uh, that's not what makes for necessarily a strong female character. Uh, she's able to fight on the same, playing field as the boys and be as handy with a blaster. But we see her go toe to toe intellectually with enemies.
Yeah, Grand Moff Tarkin,
Vader.
Lando Calrissian.
Hmm. In the comic book, see her conversing with the Emperor. Um,
Yeah, there's a queen character from an Imperial subjugated planet that is Vader brings to his side in his power games against the Emperor.
mhm,
So there's sort of a dark shadow to Leia, where there's this queen that must obey the Empire to survive, which is an interesting piece in the comics.
mhm,
So, all that said, in that even though the existence of only one speaking female character does indicate a sexist culture,
mhm,
it is never treated as strange that Leia can do what she does. And even in A New Hope, which is probably the most gender normative of the
mhm,
movies, Luke still just freely hands her his blaster, and she go blast at the stormtroopers
mhm.
to provide cover and fire. She is the one who is giving orders and guiding them around. She's not a pilot, so she doesn't pilot an X-wing, but that's not really portrayed as if she's, you know, because she's a woman, but because she's not a fighter pilot. And then canonically, there were female fighter pilots there, though they're not depicted in the movie released in 1977.
Mhm. I will say the one time that her character is sexualized, she does strangle the person responsible for sexualizing her.
Here,
Uh,
here.
so that is refreshing.
Well, I think Han Solo also sexualizes her, but that's more of a romantic
Hmm.
thing. Very 80s romance, but
Yeah,
still. Uh,
he didn't dress her up in
yeah,
anything.
I
Yeah.
would say the person who assaulted. I mean, honestly, Jabba the Hutt assaulted her,
Hmm.
like bypassed her boundaries and all that. So yeah, she strangled her captor
Hmm.
and enslaver, and it was, I think, a great decision to give agency to Leia. She was not a damsel waiting for Luke
Yeah.
to slice with his lightsaber into the room and kill Jabba and unchain her. She's like, I'm not waiting. The lights are out. Out comes the Garrett.
Yeah. Fully capable of handling herself. someone's got to save their skins, and she is more than capable of doing so.
Right. Well, Connor, any final thoughts on Leia Organa as a character?
No, I think just a standout, well written, well performed character. Uh, Maybe someday we can compare her to Daisy Ridley as Rey and see if when Rey came out and all the Gary Sue, Mary Sue complainers, whether they're valid or not, put her up against Leia, see if those complaints stick.
Well, this has been our character spotlight on Leia Organa. Thank you for listening, and join us next week for more Talking Star Wars.
We'll see you sometime soon in a galaxy right here.